For the latest in strategic affairs, subscribe to our YouTube channel. Click the bell icon for updates.
Hello and welcome to Strat News Global. Of late, China's economy has been in the headlines for its decline and rising unemployment numbers within the country. But there is one aspect that also gets highlighted when China's economy is discussed across the world, and that is the stagnation of projects under the Belt and Road Initiative that China has been giving loans to different countries in Africa, in Asia and Latin America, trying to connect a network of projects and roads and infrastructure. Where is that initiative going and what does it mean for China's economy 10 years after it was launched is the subject of this week's Simply Nitin. I'm Nitin Gokhale. So why am I concentrating or discussing China's Belt and Road Initiative? One of the primary triggers for this episode is the recent statement by Italy's defense minister calling the decision to join BRI as wicked, his country's decision to join BRI as wicked. And one of the first pushbacks that is happening against the BRI in Europe. So far, there have been protests and also opposition to the BRI in countries like Sri Lanka, in our neighborhood, or even in Pakistan, which has a separate component of the BRI under the rubric the China-Pak Economic Corridor or CPEC, under which Pakistan was supposed to get $60 billion worth of loans over a period of time starting 2013. These two countries are the prime example of how BRI or the Belt and Road Initiative that China launched to connect several countries and bring them under its influence or bring them under its network of infrastructure projects has not gone anywhere. In fact, has affected those two countries. As we know, in 2022, Sri Lankan economy collapsed because the debt burden was unsustainable, and most of the debt burden was owed to some of the projects under the BRI. Something similar has happened to CPEC, the China-Pak Economic Corridor, under which many infrastructure projects in electricity, in roads, in dams, in a port like Gwadar were supposed to give the boost to the Pakistan economy and generate employment so that unemployment rates in Pakistan can come down. In fact, contrary trends have happened in both Sri Lanka and in Pakistan. But these are the only two countries which have actually protested, or the manifestation of the downside of BRI is seen in the immediate context. But there are other countries like Kenya in Africa, where a railway project has ended up nowhere. Actually, right in the middle of an agriculture field where the railway line has been abandoned after some of it was built because Kenya couldn't sustain the repayment of the loans that China had given. Italy's pushback is significant because Italy is one of the first European countries to jump onto the bandwagon of BRI. And therefore, when Italy says that it is withdrawing from the Belt and Road Initiative, the Global Times, which is like a hound dog for the Chinese Communist Party and the Chinese state, has actually published a robust rebuttal saying this is the strongest message sent by a cabinet minister of the current Italian government since speculation that Italy may not renew the China-Italy BRI MOU has surfaced. However, this must be pointed out that it is abnormal for a defense minister to make such a remark, is what Global Times is saying. It talks about the statement by the defense minister and says, in terms of economic cooperation with China, it is often the security and defense officials who have the most radical attitude. The officials who are actually in charge of the economy appear to be much more moderate instead. This exactly shows how serious the US and the West overstretch security issues And the defense minister of Italy has been cited as just one example by Global Times. Basically, what the Global Times is saying is that the defense minister is not somebody who should be talking about economy or the BRI. The fact that a cabinet minister in Italy, which, as I said, was one of the first European countries to jump on the BRI bandwagon, has decided to oppose the BRI 1 year ahead of the expiry of the Memorandum of Understanding between Italy and China, shows that everything is not right. And the Global Times has, of course, headlined it by saying, "Don't let quitting BRI become Italy's regret." And of course, this has generated a lot of heat. But another indication of European countries keeping away from the BRI forum or the BRI initiative, the Belt and Road Initiative, is the fact that many of them are now pointing out towards India's stance. Now, that's where I want to bring your attention to what India has been doing as far as Belt and Road Initiative is concerned. When it was first announced in 2013, it was seen as a benign kind of giving aid to smaller countries, to poorer countries by a large country which has got a robust economy, very booming economy, that kind of initiative. But when CPEC became a reality, India was the only country in 2017 which did not, or which said that it will not join, or in fact it will actively oppose the BRI for two primary reasons. One, the funding pattern or the process of funding was not very transparent. It was rather opaque, and India felt that this is one way of making smaller countries dependent on China, which we have seen now the manifestation of it 5 or 6 years later in Sri Lanka, in Pakistan, in Nepal, in Africa, in even Latin America. But the primary concern and primary protest that India had, the point of protest that India had, was that the CPEC, the China-Pak Economic Corridor, was passing through Gilgit-Baltistan, which India considers as its own territory, illegally occupied by Pakistan, and of course now more or less ceded to China for economic reasons. And India has steadfastly opposed it. It has reiterated its opposition to the Belt and Road Initiative and refused to join any of those forums, any of those projects, or any of that the new Silk Route, as it is called in international parlance, the Belt and Road Initiative, even during the Shanghai Cooperation Organization summit meeting. When in July the summit meeting took place, India is the only country among the participants of the Shanghai Cooperation which is actually driven by China and supported by Russia, where it did not endorse the project. It did not support the project. And the primary reason, as I have mentioned, it has concerns about the CPEC, which traverses through the territories that India considers being illegally occupied by Pakistan. But there are other connectivity projects in Myanmar, in Sri Lanka, in Mauritius, in Thailand, in Indonesia, which India sees as a more of a political project rather than an economic project or a connectivity project. And India says, because this is not transparent enough, the funding norms are not transparent, the process of giving loans is not transparent, India does not want countries to get entrapped into what is called a debt trap diplomacy or checkbook diplomacy by China. And therefore, the Chinese are feeling the heat now, despite India being the lone country for a long time opposing the BRI initiative. It is now trying to revive the Belt and Road Initiative. 60% of the loans lent by Chinese public sector banks and public sector companies are in the projects that are under the BRI. And now they are finding it that these debts or these loans are not being serviced. The smaller countries are unable to service these loans. They are not able to pay back the principal. They are not even able to pay the interest to China, which is affecting China's economy, which is anyway was always driven by the exports model, where the Europeans bought Chinese goods or goods manufactured in China, or the Americans bought it. But when COVID hit, the disruption in supply chain and disruption in trade flow meant that Chinese economy tanked, or it sort of went downhill. And because the Chinese economy is not driven by internal consumption of its own population, China is facing the economic heat. And therefore, it is trying to revive the Belt and Road Initiative through countries like Indonesia, Guyana, Georgia. And this is something that they will try again when in October 2023, the third Belt and Road Initiative Forum or Belt and Road Forum will take place in China. I happen to have attended and reported from the second Belt and Road Initiative Forum in Beijing in April 2019. It has taken China nearly 4.5 years to hold the third edition of the Belt and Road Forum because, of course, there was COVID and there was disruption in the international travel. And many of these countries which attended that time are now facing the heat because a country like Sri Lanka, which has collapsed, it is now negotiating loans from IMF, which India is supporting strongly. All of you know how India has paid nearly $4.2 billion in various ways, grants, loans, soft loans, long-term loans to Sri Lanka to keep that country afloat. China, on the other hand, despite being a close friend and being involved closely in many of the projects in Sri Lanka, refused to give Sri Lanka any help through the IMF. It says you take more loans to service the earlier loans is what was the solution offered by the Chinese, and the Sri Lankans saw through it, so they never went for that. So these predatory tactics that the Chinese apply, both the Chinese state, the Chinese Communist Party and its public sector banks or its lending institutions, are now coming back to bite the Chinese because people are seeing through it. The political leaders, the chief executives of banks in these countries, they're all realizing that this is a trap. For instance, in Pakistan, Gwadar port was to be completed by August 2022. For the past 1.5 to 2 years, Pakistan has not paid the dues for power projects that come under the Belt and Road Initiative. In fact, it has not paid the dues since 2018. Similarly, an international airport in Zambia, Hambantota port in Sri Lanka, when they were unable to pay the interest on the loans, forget the principal amount, but even the interest on the loans, they were taken over by the Chinese. Now the Chinese don't know what to do with it. Hambantota port is a classic example. The government in Sri Lanka gave Hambantota port on a 99-year lease to the Chinese because they couldn't pay the loans or repay the interest. And now they've got ownership, but there is no traffic in Hambantota. There is no business that is happening in the Hambantota port. So many of these projects were vanity projects in the smaller countries where political leaders were bought, political leaders were given bribes by the Chinese by indulging in what is called checkbook diplomacy. And finally, all of these have come back to bite China. It has fallen into its own debt trap. And that's something which nobody would have realized. So if you look at countries like in South Asia, the debt to China has risen by 4.7 billion in 2011 to 6.3 billion in 2020. And Beijing is now largest bilateral creditor to Maldives, to Pakistan, to Sri Lanka, according to a World Bank report in 2022. And this lending spree hasn't had the commensurate return to China, and of course has also made these countries either dependent or bankrupt, these smaller countries, and which has now got its own feedback effect or cascading effect on the economy of these countries. Therefore, the worry now for China is, while its economy is not doing too well, unemployment is on the rise, housing bubble has burst, the consumption within the Chinese domestic economy is not rising. Exports are facing headwinds from Europe and from America. The Chinese were hoping that BRI projects will give them the boost required. But many of these infrastructure projects, which they started off with big fanfare and a lot of money given to the local governments in, say, Myanmar or Cambodia, Laos, Italy, Africa. Many of the countries in Africa and Latin America are now floundering. Now, there is neither money that is being returned by the governments, the local governments there, nor is China able to get any business out of it. That is the trap that they have walked themselves into. And it's an example of how predatory lending, opaque systems can lead you to a doom which nobody saw when this signature project of President Xi Jinping was launched in 2013 and was initially called, of course, as many of you know, it was called the One Belt, One Road. It was renamed in 2016 as, or in 2015 as Belt and Road Initiative. And from 2016 onwards, it came to be known as BRI in every other country. So let us see where the Belt and Road Forum, the third Belt and Road Forum, goes in October 2023, where already many European countries, including Italy, have indicated that they will keep away from that forum. India continues to oppose that forum, has never supported it. And more and more countries are realizing that this is a trap that they must get out of, or at least not get into further from here. That is going to be a test for Xi Jinping's leadership, among other challenges that he faces domestically. And he's still trying to be a salesman. He's trying to sell the idea of BRI. In fact, at the Chengdu World Games, apparently there was a separate kind of presentation and a lot of push by the Chinese to sell BRI as a panacea for the economic ills of many countries post-COVID. But how many of them are going to buy this argument? How many are going to buy into this argument by China that it is good for their economy, it is good for the world because it's a cooperative arrangement remains to be seen. Because so far, evidence suggests that countries have only suffered economically if they have joined BRI, and which validates India's point of view, India's stand against the BRI. That's something that we must watch out for. And because today India is at least standing firm in terms of its economic development, its economy being now the fifth largest and the fastest growing amongst the major economies, gives India the chance to get some of the investment that is running away from China into India. Of course, India will have to do a lot of regulatory work. It will have to do better ease of doing business index, and also have systems which can encourage quicker turnaround in projects that are being conceived and then that can be implemented. But that's a separate story about economy. Our colleague Anil Padmanabhan frequently keeps talking about the ease of doing business issues that India faces and the China Plus One policy, which India must cash in his program called Capital Calculus. Do keep watching that program. But today I wanted to draw your attention to the changing trend in countries which were blindly supporting China earlier in its Belt and Road Initiative are now doing a rethink. That's something that one has to watch out for, because it might have cascading effects on the world economy going forward if China collapses or China's economy slows down further from where it is at the moment. That's all I have this week. I know it's not a usual topic that I normally touch upon, but economy today is also part of national security. And therefore, I thought I must draw your attention to it, flag it, and see where we are going from here as far as the global economy is concerned. Do keep watching Stat News Global and, of course, Simply Nitin every Saturday at 7 p.m. You know where to reach us, where to send your feedback, your questions, your comments are always welcome. And you know where to subscribe to our YouTube channel and also follow our social media handles. If you're not already a subscriber or a follower of our social media handles, do subscribe to our YouTube channel and follow our social media handles on various platforms like Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and send us your comments and feedback. For the moment, it's goodbye.